Whilst we have found out a great deal about Baldur's Gate 3, its deepest mysteries still remain locked to us, something that Larian ought to be praised for, as they have been masters of useful revelations that somehow don't tell us too much of the actual story. And one of the nicer tidbits we've discovered is that there may be one or even two other joinable companions in the game. At least, this is what Fextralife had mentioned in one of his videos. And if this is the case, there are several potentially interesting ideas and theories one could derive from this. Now, the three main antagonists we are aware of are Enver Gortash, Ketheric Thorm, and the strange woman known only as Orin, with each representing one of the dead three, respectively Bane, Myrkul, and Baal. We know precious little about these characters, but one thing we do know, simply based on a trailer interaction, is that the relationship between Ketheric Thorm and Enver Gortash is not perfectly stable, and this makes sense. Gortash says to Ketheric, "You said it was under control," to which Ketheric responds, "It isn't you I answer to, Gortash." The dead three have always been allies, but people quickly forget that they have also turned on each other. Just before they all ascended to godhood, they fought each other for the position of singular god to replace Jurgil, and during the time of troubles, at Bane's behest, Myrkul slew every assassin in the realms with a powerful necromantic spell in an effort to empower Bane, which greatly weakened Baal and constituted what one could only call a betrayal. And I mention this only so as to establish the fact that despite being allies, the dead three are allies in a state of constant friction and strife, as can be expected of incredibly evil and selfish beings. And why would their chosen be any different? We also know from a trailer that Enver Gortash offers you an alliance, which of course could be a trap or some sort of grand deception, but the offer on its face still makes him out to be cut from a very different cloth compared to Ketheric or Orin. We are told that he has been raised by a devil, something we don't quite understand, but we do know that he represents Bane, and by his very nature, he is a skilled and ambitious politician, having been appointed Grand Duke of Baldur's Gate. Ketheric, on the other hand, is not someone one could even begin to imagine an alliance with, as his grim, devoted, and dour nature would preclude him from such a thing. And Orin, from what little we know about her, is simply a psychopathic murderer, which makes an alliance with her even less likely than with Ketheric. Now you might be asking yourself, why am I even talking about this? These are all antagonists, or even villains, so who cares about whether or not they could be allies? Well, personally, I believe that Baldur's Gate 3 will have more surprises in store for us than we can dream of in our philosophy, and that one of those surprises might be actually getting Gortash as a playable companion later on in the game. Now, part of this theory is of course predicated on the idea that there will be more joinable companions down the line. As intimated earlier, Fextralife had stated in one of his videos. The possibilities are many. Someone we've seen before, such as Alfira the Tiefling Bard from the Druid Grove, or more likely someone entirely new. Much earlier data-mined information spoke of a halfling werewolf, so perhaps we may yet meet this character, and they might be able to join the party. Or it could be a complete wild card we never saw coming. Nonetheless, hear me out about the Gortash theory. Let us begin with the simple fact that erstwhile enemies becoming allies, companions, and even friends is not something entirely alien in the RPG tradition. If you've ever played the fantastic RPG Dragon Age Origins, then you know a major antagonist by the name of Loghain MacTyr can actually be recruited as a party member, albeit under very specific circumstances, and you can, with the right choices, even forge a friendship of respect with him. But this has not just happened in other RPGs, such as Dragon Age. You may recall from the original Baldur's Gate games that a certain former enemy, arch-enemy you might even say, can be recruited and even befriended and redeemed if you make the right choices. I am, of course, referring to none other than your brother, Saravak Anchev, once the main antagonist in the first Baldur's Gate game, who can come back and be converted through your choices to the side of good in the final game of Throne of Baal. I mention this only so as to show you that it can be done in RPGs, and there's precedent in the Baldur's Gate tradition, so why would it not be possible with Gortash? Of all the major antagonists, Gortash is by far the most public. Indeed, you might even call him the public face of the Absolute. He necessarily interacts with the city of Baldur's Gate as a Grand Duke, and seemingly interacts with the player in a polite and non-combative manner. However, he's obviously not a good person, given his background with devils, and his ostensible ties to the Hells as well as Bane. the god of hatred and tyranny. What would happen, however, if the factions of the Absolute were not nearly as united as we are led to believe? I've already mentioned the potential of conflict between Gortash and Ketheric Thorm, but we have also seen that scene from the Panel of Hell where Minthara, upon failing to retrieve the artifact that the Absolute covets, is threatened with death and punishment. Now, if we had not known any better or chosen a different path, Minthara would very much be non-recruitable. But if we make the right decisions, she is recruitable as a joinable companion. It is simply a matter of following the right path. Therefore, it is hardly a leap from there that other story opponents might be recruitable, and if there are problems within the hierarchy of the Absolute, which we know there are, it is not impossible to conceive of a Gortash that defects from the Absolute or is rejected by the Absolute for some failure, perceived or real, who then, for the sake of survival or even vengeance, joins you in defying the Absolute. There are several reasons as to why I think this. I have already stated that Gortash is the consummate politician, so he must be flexible and quick to maneuver himself into the right position. But one thing above all the others stands out about Gortash, and that is his apparent lack of fanaticism and self-serving nature, based on what little we know about him. Ketheric Thorm is clearly a traumatized, broken man. He admits this much to you himself, which has led to a personal obsession with closing the circle of whatever nefarious plot the Absolute is weaving. Men such as he cannot be converted or turned away from their path. It's too late. Too much has happened, as there's nothing left that stirs his heart anymore. We are too close to the ending and the new beginning. I can coddle failure no longer. In short, Ketheric Thorm simply wishes to see the plan of the Absolute come to fruition, and nothing more. Orin we know the least about, but we are told she is a shape-shifting fanatic who lives to serve Baal and to murder in his name. So again, based on what little we know, she is a sociopathic killer with a singular mindset and simple desires. Of course, I could be completely wrong about her, but from the little we've gleaned, it seems at least likely that she's this way, and I do not foresee a psychopathic murderer being easily bent or swayed to a different cause. Above all, one is religiously devoted to her deity, as Orin is claimed to be. But Gortash is different. If you recall from earlier times, even Sarevok was not merely a mindless petty killer. Yes, he killed and punished, but he did so with purpose, and he was as much a politician and strategist as he was a killer. Gortash gives us similar vibes. Not that he is identical either in character or mentality to Sarevok, but he seems, in stark contrast to his associates, to be driven more by ambition than zealotry, and more to serve himself than some grand cause, and gives off hints of ultimately serving his own interests first, and perhaps paying only lip service to the Absolute, which could lead to an interesting dynamic between the player and him. After all, Gortash himself states, a brittle alliance can only break. Perhaps the potential of an alliance with the player will be stronger. Thanks for watching, but before I go, I'd like to invite you to my Discord, where you can discuss Baldur's Gate 3 with like-minded people, as well as other RPGs. And if you like my content, you can leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. And if you could hit the bell icon to be notified of my videos, it would be much appreciated. Thanks again, and I'll check you out next time. Take care.